Hello everyone, Coach Castle here from Castle's Corner, and today we're going to be breaking down how to design a workout program for yourself. The things that no one discusses that you're going to need to know in order to effectively make strength and muscle gains in the shortest period of time, while maximizing your time in the gym and minimizing the time you spend exercising every week. So, as we know, time is in short supply for everyone. And everyone could of course do with better time management, better efficiency as well, myself included. So, I would like to stress the fact that nothing I ever talk about or explain is reinventing the wheel. All the exercises that I provide and discuss in my lectures and book, and on my flashcards and everything else, are common exercises that have been used for many years. They're all very time efficient and musculature efficient. The thing that people do not understand is efficiency with exercises, which is exactly one of the things I'm going to keep talking about on this podcast. The fitness industry, in my opinion, is nothing more than a revolving meat grinder which turns individuals who require help, takes their money, leaving them still uneducated and dependent on a trainer, usually yo-yoing back and forth. In the best case scenario, the person has good genetics, they're young and driven, and they do get good results, although inefficiently. And then they go on to become a trainer and continue preaching and practicing all this nonsense, wasting time, efficiency, and damaging your body. Just because why? They look good because they have good genetics, because they wasted 10 years of their life developing a body they could have developed in 2 years. Using the simple justification, look at my body, look at what I did. This is not an educated person. Just because you can train yourself does not mean you know how to train. So you understand, not all exercises are equal, and of course not all training plans are created equal. You can hire yourself a personal trainer or an online coach or anyone else who says and claims that they know what they're doing. However, why would you do that when you can just trust yourself? Why would you do that when you can simply watch this short video and have a thorough understanding of how it works for yourself? So, let's get into the video. How do you know what exercises are best to group together in your plan? How do you decide which days in the week to train? And how often should you train a given muscle? Now these are kind of the three basic questions you have to have answered before you even start. So to begin with, you must start with the end goal in mind. Yes, goals again. Meaning you need to have a very clear mental image of exactly what it is you're trying to achieve. But the problem with that is that most people don't know what their goals are. They don't know what they're trying to achieve. They're not specific or clear about what their goals are. And most don't know the difference between realistic goals and unrealistic goals. Dreaming big is important, but not unrealistic. So, now of course, there are different kinds of exercise and skill training for different goals. So, put a little bit of thought into what you want to achieve, research a little bit, and then choose a goal and be realistic about it. Now, what I find is that most people are extremely unrealistic and ignorant about what their goal actually entails, which is typically why it's unrealized. I have discussed at length before, but it is much easier to be foggy and hazy about your goal without actually setting a deadline and clear course of action, because that would of course require effort on your part, not much, but a little. And you would also know very well when you failed. Most people are losers, and when they fail, they stay down. People don't like to fail. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You must fail your way to your success. The only way you learn is from mistakes and failures. How will you grow more intelligent unless you fail more often? But back to unrealistic goals. So an example of an unrealistic goal would be most young guys, like younger gentlemen before 20. They want to be able to bench 500 pounds, squat 700 pounds, deadlift 1,000 pounds. They want to be ripped like a bodybuilder. They want to be a professional MMA fighter, a long-distance runner, a triathlete, a cyclist. They want to be everything under the sun. Well, obviously unrealistic. All of these things require different kinds of training and different kinds of skill training and different diets and habits. Most of the training for these things are completely at cross purposes and in no way, shape, or form correlate to the other training you need to be doing for the discipline. And listen up, let me drop another truth bomb on you. You probably already know this, but there's only 24 hours in a day. So you probably have a life that requires you to work for money, somewhere, somehow, time for your family, sleeping, chores, personal hobbies, friends, driving, shopping, etc. Like, just keep going. Whatever it is that you need to do, you cannot afford to spend all of your time in the gym working on various goals. Not to mention the fact that, again, most of these goals you're trying to accomplish are mutually exclusive. Meaning that if you're trying to gain endurance, you will lose power. If you're trying to gain power, you will lose endurance. Have you ever seen a 500-pound power lifter running a 100-mile race? I don't think so. Have you ever seen a long-distance runner, a fifth their size, deadlifting 500 pounds? No, of course not. Do you really think they can lift heavy weight when they're the size and shape of a skeleton? No. It's just the way it is. When we talk about evaluating the efficiency of an exercise, we need to be very clear about what we mean. If your goal is to lift the most amount of weight, you will define efficiency as using exercises that minimize the load on each muscle, which thereby allows you to move heavier weight. But if your goal is to build muscle and be healthy, you would define efficiency as exercises that allow you to load the muscle the most with the least wasted effort, which is what I do. These are very drastically different goals and drastically different methods of achieving those goals. So one would be a power lifter and one would be a bodybuilder. So it is important to be realistic and ask yourself, why is that your goal? Why have you chosen it? Now, what I find is that most of us make the mistake of choosing a goal that we think will portray our identity or an image of us that we want others to see, how we want others to perceive us. And like I say all the time, fuck what people think about you. What is important is that you are happy, you are feeling good, and you are making progress. Looking good, being healthy, energy management, time management, a good life, doing things you want to do. Fuck everyone else. Now, once you have decided exactly what your goal is, could be, I don't know, fat loss, muscle building, strength building, technique improvement, skill improvement, tendon strengthening, I don't know. Whatever your goal is, figure it out. Then you can decide what style of training suits you best and come up with a plan of action for your training. But you can't do that unless you know what the end is. Now, when it comes to creating a plan, in my opinion, there are 4 factors which must be addressed before you even begin. These are not talked about. These are intensity, recovery and adaptation, and of course, how much time you actually have to designate to your training. So a simple definition of intensity is how far you can push your muscle till failure and how many times. Recovery and adaptation is a little bit more complicated of the 3, but I'll do a brief job trying to summarize it real short for you here. So in general, a muscle needs more than 1 to 3 days of recovery after a workout, assuming a moderately high level of intensity was applied. To be clear, most of you barely operate with a moderately high level of intensity. I don't care what you think. On the other hand, if you train with very high intensity, 3 to 5 days or even 6 to 7 days of rest may be required before that muscle can be worked again. So there's a time period before you should be working the muscle. Now, to be clear, training with very high intensity takes years and years of practice to achieve. You cannot train intensely overnight because your body's not ready for it. Tendons, the muscles, they can't do it. Your mind's not prepared for it. You don't know what you're doing. I've seen many people posting on social media, #killing it, lifting life, these other stupid things. These are people who are not training intensely, they're simply sweating. Once again, all of these people have no idea what training correctly or with correct intensity means, as it requires years and years of consistent dedication and effort to achieve. I remember years and years ago thinking I was training like a badass, I was intense, simply because I was moving lots and lots of weight, making lots of noise, sweating a lot and collapsing. That's not intensity, that's being a moron. Now, let's talk recovery phase. So, after performing some form of resistance workout, there is recovery phase, generally lasting 1 to 3 days. Now, during this phase, muscle recovers back to its baseline strength, what it was before the workout. However, over the next days after that, the muscle will transition to a supercompensation phase, generally lasting another day or 2. Now, this phase of the muscle adaptation is growing, in short, preparing itself for the next exercise session. Now ideally, you should work each muscle again when the muscle is at its peak of supercompensation phase. This factor is important because this phase begins to decline after the peak. So basically, if you wait till after supercompensation, you're back to baseline. So basically, like no previous workout had occurred. So the timing is, of course, very important. Nobody talks about this. Why I'm talking about it. Now, working out a muscle again, when it's at its peak of supercompensation phase, will push it to a higher level of strength and growth, like stairs. If you don't do that, you're basically going downhill and plateauing. This process is basically how muscle accumulation or growth occurs. So it builds on previous high points of your muscle recovery. Think an hourglass full of sand. When you flip it over, the sand then begins to accumulate at the bottom in very small amounts into a pile, which eventually becomes a hill and then finally fills up the hourglass. Now, this factor is why workouts that are too infrequent or performed after the supercompensation phase has passed is like starting all over from baseline again, as in you did not do a workout. And if you feel no stronger, and if you make no progress, that's exactly what's happening. However, if the next workout for that particular muscle occurs too soon after the previous workout, that's overtraining. So this would be a scenario where you do chest and back, and then 3 days later you do chest and back again. That muscle would not have had the chance to experience even the earliest part of supercompensation, meaning you'd actually be going backwards, you'd be regressing. So basically the muscle growth just stops and goes backwards because it hasn't built it all. Now, of course, the issue with exercise intensity is that it factors into how long the recovery phase needs to be. So when generating less workout intensity, it of course needs less recovery time. And obviously using more workout intensity means more recovery time. But only to a point. This doesn't mean weeks or days, only to a point. There is such a thing as an ideal intensity. The intensity should not be low nor too high, regardless of the subsequent recovery time. So the right amount of intensity yields the greatest benefits. Now, some individuals will always believe that annihilating a muscle during a workout, completely fatiguing it, unable to move it, will result in maximum muscle gains as long as they take enough time off, sleep, and eat enough. That is not true, and it's not supported by science or research. Again, grow science, guys. The literature actually seems to suggest that getting close to failure, but not all the way there, is the best way to go. Think Icarus in the sun, don't go too high, don't go too low. Shorter or longer recovery time is not the absolute equalizer of the intensity level used. You cannot make up for an insufficient workout intensity simply by taking less time between workouts or sets. Nor can you make up for the excessive workout intensity simply by taking an extra day or two of rest. It doesn't work that way. Too much exercise intensity results in muscle damage from which muscle cannot easily recover. No matter if you take extra days, you've basically screwed yourself. Now, of course, as you progress in your training, muscle tolerance increases, higher intensity workouts become more possible, you can take more pain, you're more focused. In reality, however, there's always a point of too much for everyone in the world. The right or correct amount of workout intensity is required, and this will vary drastically person to person based on large numbers of factors. Now, these include your individual health, sufficient sleep, sufficient calorie intake, your age, whether you're taking drugs or not, if you're enhanced, adequate endocrine levels and other daily activities, caloric demands, as well as your current level of muscular strength, endurance, and emotional state. In reality, everyone should experiment to find their own optimum level of intensity to work at, and then balance that level with the right amount of exercise frequently. This is individual. You have to experiment. Now, this can only be done if you track your progress with your weight sets and reps, if you track your emotional states, and if you track your caloric intake every day. Then you can look at it and reflect. So, I guess another question would be, how much time do you actually have to designate to your training? So, it all depends, again, on your goals. What is your goal? What are you trying to do? Do you need 7 hours a day in the gym, or do you need half an hour? So, in regards to time, I will say, for most people, it's far less time than they think, and generally speaking, most people are very inefficient in the gym. The vast majority of my workouts are between 35 minutes and 1 hour at the very most, personally, and that's 6 days a week. I also train with many more sets and reps than most people, and the only reason my workouts are so long is because I have to keep stripping weights and moving things. It's the only reason, otherwise it'd be much faster. The vast majority of my clients, unless they're a bodybuilder, they only work out 30 or 45 minutes. Bodybuilders train a little bit more. I've never once met a person or had a client who didn't have time in their schedule for achieving the things that they needed. The problem is that they simply didn't have a schedule because they thought it was some kind of a prison or only weird people did schedules or something. Suffice it to say that you do have time, and if you think you don't have time, you simply have never actually examined and timed your day. I would highly recommend you go to my website and download my time waster sheet, or have a habit tracker, and you can actually see where all your time goes. It's mostly wasted. There have been many studies done on this topic. The average American wastes somewhere between 4 and 7 hours a day doing absolutely nothing productive. The majority of the time was spent on YouTube, television, social media, or in bars. Now, I would actually argue these studies because I think the number was probably higher than that, simply because in the case of most of these studies, they were self-reporting people, and most people do not want to report themselves being a lazy fuck-off. So, don't be most people. Make a schedule. Don't be afraid of it. I have videos on how to make a schedule that doesn't feel like a prison. Making a schedule is one of the best things that you can do, and of course, if you want to make progress in the gym, you better schedule your workouts. Now, the last thing to mention, and you've heard it mentioned it many times, but it's reciprocal intervention. It's very important when deciding how to group your muscles. So, I've spoken at length about it before, but suffice to say that in terms of designating a workout program, what makes the most sense in terms of body part grouping is to be combining opposing movements in the same workout. So, in other words, grouping exercises together that are opposites to each other. So when working out one side, the other side is fully relaxed and resting, so you don't have to just sit there between sets. So instead of working two muscles that may be working simultaneously, like chest and triceps, they're both getting fatigued inefficiently, it is more sensible to work two muscles that do not work simultaneously, like the chest and the back, which have nothing to do with each other. Again, reciprocal innervation. Now, when the pectorals work, the back muscles are fully relaxing and vice versa. Same thing with the biceps and the triceps. This factor ensures that each muscle is fresh or fully recovered each time you perform a set for that given muscle group. So again, much more efficient. Now, there are a few opposing muscle groups that would make for good muscle grouping in any given workout, doesn't matter what it is. So here's a short list just off the top of my head. These are the major ones. So chest and back, front deltoids and rear deltoids, biceps and triceps, quadriceps and hamstrings, abdominals and your erector spinal, or your people call it lower back, although it's not true, there's no such thing. Forearm flexor and forearm extensor, and then of course your glutes and your hip flexors. Now the reason is because again those are all opposing muscle charts. Just look at an anatomy chart, guys. Now that we know this, I should mention that there are 14 muscle groups that should be worked for the average individual who is not a bodybuilder or some form of specialist. Now these groups are the following: the pectorals, the chest, the latimus, the lats, the middle trapezius, the upper trapezius, the medial deltoids, the posterior deltoids, the interior deltoids, the tricep, the bicep, the quadriceps, the hamstrings, the glutes, the calves, and the abs. Now you could of course always add more muscle groupings to the workout regime, including like the hip flexors, the obliques, the forearm flexors and forearm extensors, your neck, front, back, and side, erector spinal, I mentioned that already, shoulder rotations, etc., whatever. Deciding to work these additional groups depends on the person's degree of ambitions and the amount of time that they're able to spend in the gym. Again, what are you aiming for? What's your end goal? It is important to note that as a general guideline, I would recommend that the average person who only wants to exercise 3 days a week should do a full body workout performing 3 sets of 1 exercise per muscle group per workout. So this exercise plan entails approximately 42 total sets. Assuming a person works all 14 primary physique muscles, this would be around a 90-minute workout 3 days a week. You all have time for that. Now, as somebody who is willing to exercise for 4 times a week could split their body parts into 2 groups, or also called a 2-way split, and perform 5 or 6 sets per muscle group. Now, this results in each muscle getting worked a little bit harder, but with a little bit less frequency, twice per week instead of 3 times per week. And then a 3-way split would be dividing all the muscle groups into 3 separate workouts. Now, this could be employed by a person who is able to work out at least 4 to 6 days per week. With this grouping, the person would do either 5 or 6 sets per muscle group, but they would have a much shorter workout, and he could do like 8 to 10 sets per muscle group. So his workout would only be like 30 to 45 minutes. The second option would allow for more intensity and volume in the workout. The third option would allow for shorter periods of time and more sets. And finally, a 4-way split is used by a person who is doing more body parts. Usually a bodybuilder would use this, or somebody who wants to do more volume or more sets, or perhaps a much shorter workout. So this option is one that I use, and it requires 6 workouts per week in order to get enough frequency of the workouts per muscle group. The 4 workouts would simply be rotated around the 5 or 6 days of the week that you would select as your exercise days. So to keep it very simple for you guys, Monday you would do your chest, your laterals, your back, and your obliques. Tuesday you would work your front deltoids, your lateral deltoids, your rear deltoids, and your traps. Wednesday you could make your biceps, triceps, abs, and back, as well as your forearm extensors and flexors. Thursday you'd be doing leg extensions, hamstring curls, calf raises, hip adductions, abductions, and glutes. Friday then, I would recommend taking the day off to recover, and then you would start your schedule again on Saturday, meaning you'd be starting again with your chest and your back. Now this is a training plan which encompasses all of your major muscle groups and would give you a full body workout plus extra. So when you perform each workout for the first time, it will of course take longer than normal, more than half an hour, take an hour, hour and a half maybe. As you get more comfortable with your routines, your weights, your movements through the gym, your house, whatever, you'll drop the time dramatically, obviously. Let's see, an even simpler plan for somebody who's maybe just starting out, I would recommend something more along the lines of Monday, something real simple, just chest, lats, and scapular retraction. Tuesday, rear delt, front delt, and lateral delt. Wednesday, quads, hamstrings, and calves. Take Thursday, Friday off. Saturday, bicep, triceps, abs, then take Sunday off and start again on Monday. Now, of course, you can schedule your training any way that is convenient for you. There's no need to be missing your training days or scheduled training days due to a lack of time or inability to go to the gym. There's no reason to be missing these things, as I explained. Many times home workouts are actually much more productive and much easier, and they save you tons of time. You don't need a gym for any reason. Really, you don't. And I've already discussed what you are lacking is discipline, and a reason to be disciplined. That's why you're not doing it. You must remind yourself of the reason you must be disciplined every day. Why are you doing this? Are you doing this to make your life better? Are you doing this because you realize you're a degenerated garbage human? Are you doing this because you're 50 pounds overweight, you'd like to be healthy? Are you doing it because you were disabled and you need to be stronger to play with your children? Are you, whatever, are you doing it to rehab your body? Are you doing it because you were in a toxic relationship you just got out of and you realized you were the problem and you need to make your life better? It doesn't matter what the reason is. It doesn't need to be a standard reason. Pick one, start going. Use anything you can. You don't have to have some compelling standard reason. You don't have to have a passion to get started. You just have to get started. Everyone is unique, and your reason will be unique. Whatever your reason is, find it and use it, and you remind yourself of it every day, why it's so important, and you do this. Write it down every day. Put it on your walls. Buy stickers. Wear it on your shirts. Proclaim it out loud to yourself every night before bed and every morning when you wake up. Repeat it to yourself during your workouts. Achieving your dreams is far more possible than you think it is. You can already see everybody else doing things that you want to do. You know it's possible. You're simply lacking the discipline to get it done. The far-thinking vision to imagine the future, and then the small steps applied consistently over days, weeks, and years to get what you're going to get. Guys, it takes patience. Yes, you can. If I can do it, believe me, you can do it. I came from a place much darker than you can imagine. And I am still here. I am still alive, and I am still fighting. And I'm still doing everything I can to help you guys. I'm doing everything I can every day to achieve my dream, until my body finally gives out on me. I'll keep pushing, guys. Now, of course, if you found this information helpful, I would remind you all, watch the video again, take notes. Sorry, but you're not as smart as you think you are, and your memory does not work as good as you think it does. You're pretty stupid, actually, myself included. So take notes. You will not retain this information unless you take notes, seriously, and purposely intend to choose to do so. And if this video helps you, share it, like it, please subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channel to educate more people. Every little bit helps. For any questions, leave them in the comments or email me directly. If it's a good question, I'll make a video about it like this one. Every little bit helps. This is a game of percentages. As we know, everything in life is about percentages. Start small. Yes, you can, guys. Now go get some. Have a great day, everybody, or good evening. And don't stop pushing forward, and it's never too late in the day to start.